What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're gonna discuss pillar number 2 today. And before I start, let me just preface this by saying the pillars of fitness hold up the entire structure. However, for it to work, you need something like cement, and that for me is self-discipline and self-control, and that's probably the biggest lesson I had to learn. If you're ruled by your urges, you're no better than an animal. The thing that sets us apart from animals is that we can control our urges, that we can delay our gratification. You know, studies have shown that children who are able to delay gratification at a very young age tend to be much more successful later on in life than those who can't. And that's the thing you've got to learn. You've got to learn to control your desires, specifically your desire to eat. Now, it's the same with any other addiction, basically. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a glass of alcohol every now and then, but if you're doing it again and again and again every single day, you become an alcoholic. Now, the exact same thing with food. Now, the big difference between, saying, being addicted to smoking or being addicted to alcohol is that when you're addicted to food, it's pretty easy to see. You know, everyone can see how big and how fat you are. So you gotta learn to control that, and that's what pillar number 2 is about. So here we go. Pillar number 2, intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is fasting based on a schedule. It means it's not, say, like a Daniel's fast where you don't eat meat for like 2 weeks, or let's say a biblical fast where you're not fasting, or where you're fasting and not eating for like a week. Now, intermittent fasting is where you decide not to eat for periods of a time. Now, it can be pretty short, for example, 8-16, in which there's an 8-hour window in which you can eat and 16 hours which you don't eat. Or 12-12, or it can be pretty long, for example 1-23. For 1 hour you can eat, 23 hours you decide not to eat. Intermittent fasting seems strange to us because of our modern lifestyles. I mean, most of us, if you're from the Western world, have been raised to expect 3 square meals of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, that's a very, very modern concept that didn't exist when we go back to ancient times. In ancient times, you probably had 1 big meal a day, and maybe you had some snacks earlier. If you go back to ancient man, to the hunter-gatherer societies, you also would probably just eat once a day. At night, you would gather and hunt what you needed. You would eat it that night, and the next day you would start the process over again. It's only when we started becoming, domesticated, you know, for a lack of a better word, when we started becoming domesticated, when we started transforming agriculturally, that it changed. And fasting has always been a big part of many, many cultures around the world, and it's still part of some Eastern cultures. And it's very, very healthy for you. It's not something new. It's something that our ancestors have done on and off for years on end, and it's actually really, really healthy for you. Basically, when you fast, you give your stomach just a chance to recover. You give your body a chance to reset, get rid of some of the toxins, and overall, I cannot recommend fasting highly enough, but please feel free to do your own research on the matter. Like I've said before, these are just the things I did that worked for me. Maybe you disagree, but I think you should give it a try at least. Well, if you're gonna start out, I would recommend doing the 8-16 one, where there's an 8-hour window in which you can eat, and then a 16-hour window in which you don't eat. For example, let's say 12 o'clock in the afternoon, my window starts. That means between 12 o'clock that afternoon and 8 o'clock at night, I can eat. So if you refer back to pillar number 1, calorie counting, intermittent fasting helps you an awful lot, because with the idea of bank balance, if you build up a surplus then you can go a little bit more crazy on the weekends. Now, intermittent fasting makes that very, very easy. Like I said, the 8-16 hour one is probably the easiest one. I don't really count the 12-12 as intermittent fasting because that's just most of our lifestyles. But yeah, you could do the 8-16 one. There's also the 4-20, and then there's the 23 one. And then you can even go more extreme than that, although I definitely would not recommend that for beginners. It is a little tough to do. So when I started out doing intermittent fasting, I did it once a week. I got up. Now, I'm going to tell you in a minute, there is actually a little bit of a better way to do it that I discovered only after I'd lost most of the weight. But yeah, I would get up and I would eat a very big and very balanced breakfast. I'll show you in a minute how, at the end of this video, I'll include a little section showing you what was typical of what I would cook during my fasting days. So I would get up on the Monday, eat that big breakfast, and then I wouldn't eat again for the rest of the day. Water was fine, and most of the times in the afternoon, I had a black coffee with no sugar. You know, coffee has no calories, and it actually helps suppress your appetite. So I would do that for the whole day, and I wouldn't eat again until the next day. I didn't have an active training session during that day, but I did go for a walk. So that's how I started out. Then when I realized, okay, I've got this under control, this is not that difficult to do, I can control my hunger. I did it where I would fast on the days that I wasn't training. So I would go Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I would get up, eat the big breakfast, and then I wouldn't eat again until the following day. And I really, really felt good. It really boosted my metabolism, and it made my lifestyle change so much faster and easier. And something I kept telling myself was that if I get hungry, that's good. Hunger is my friend. I have a lot of fat to burn off. The hunger is just my body going through that process. Because now you're teaching your body, in effect, not to rely on food for energy, but to start using the fat stores for energy. Yeah, so that's how I did it. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I would use as training days. And I wouldn't recommend doing the fast on training days when you're starting out. That comes a little bit later. OMAD is 1 meal a day diet. Now, the 1 meal a day diet is, something I discovered only later, and in my opinion, it's better than what I did. The big difference between OMAD and the intermittent fasting that I practiced is where instead of eating a big breakfast, you would eat a big dinner at the end of the day, possibly right after training. I'll link the website down below, but OMAD, though the website is great, it has so much important information that you can use, and it makes the process of fasting so easy. In fact, if you remember during Pillar 1, the calorie calculator that I added, it actually came from that website. Okay. The reason why it's so important to eat a big dinner instead of a big breakfast is because of your insulin levels. Insulin is important because when your insulin spikes and it starts dropping, you get hungry. And here's the most obese individuals are actually insulin resistant. That's a big part of why people who have diabetes need to have regular shots of insulin, is because their bodies are way too resistant to insulin, so they need to compensate and get extra. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but that's the way I understand it. So you need to get your insulin levels down lower across the average because it's better for your body. Too much insulin and your inflammation levels actually goes up, which adds a whole host of health problems. Not just in the short run, like having problems with your knees and your joints, but in the long run, really affecting your health badly. I tell you, I'm not exaggerating when I say 80% of the health problems that people struggle with on a day-to-day basis actually comes from inflammation problems. And unfortunately, modern-day pharmaceutical companies are more interested in treating the symptoms than treating the actual root cause, which is inflammation, because then they not make money. And it's actually pretty easy to control by yourself, and the best thing you can do is just get the weight off. So, when you eat a big breakfast in the morning, your insulin levels go up, and then around lunchtime, they start crashing, which means you get hungry. And so you decide to eat a big lunch, it goes back up. and around dinner time it crashes again. And then you eat a big dinner, and it's a vicious cycle. Whereas if you're doing OMAD, your insulin levels are low, and then when you eat dinner, it goes up, and it starts to come down right when you're asleep, so you don't really notice it. Now, I will be honest with you guys, doing this does take self-discipline. You don't need to do OMAD every single day. You could do it once a week, or twice a week, or 3 times a week, or how many times you like. It's not that difficult to do. And again, honestly, at the beginning, you're gonna get hungry. You're definitely gonna get hungry. But a big part of that, and you can check this yourself, is you'll start to get hungry when it's lunchtime. Not because you need food, but because that's what your body's used to. Much like Pavlov's dogs with the bell. You know, your body starts expecting food. So oftentimes we eat out of habit, out of boredom, and that's the type of things that we need to break, the type of habits that we need to break if you're going to change your life. Remember, I told you, diets don't work, lifestyle changes. That's what you need to do, lifestyle change. You need to change your lifestyle if you're going to change your life. Well, I recently traveled to the Transvaal to visit some family members, and I decided, instead of heavily restricting my diet and instead of telling them I can't eat this, I can't eat this, I can't eat this, or I don't want to eat this, I'd rather do OMAD and go on a little week and a half cutting spree. So this is what I did. Monday, 6 days out of the 7, I would do OMAD. In other words, I would get up, I would drink a cup of black coffee, and I would drink water throughout the day, and then I would eat a big dinner. I would train on alternating days, so Monday training, Tuesday no training, Wednesday training, Thursday no training, and so on and so forth. And then I would always train right after I would always eat right after I had my training day. Now, to give you an idea, just me, because I don't have that much to lose anymore, just myself doing this, I lost 3 kilograms in a week and a half. 3, which was a little extreme because I didn't want to lose that much. So now I'm back to bulking. I still feel I'm too small. I want to get bigger. So yeah, just to summarize, intermittent fasting is really, really good for you. Even if you're not looking to lose some weight, I would still recommend doing a fast at least once a week, unless you're trying to bulk, and then it's a different story. Intermittent fasting is really, really useful because it gives you that calorie deficit for the weekends. So, I forgot to mention before, when I started out and I was doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the fast, I would go a little bit crazy on the weekends because my calorie deficit would be so high that I could probably eat almost anything I wanted that weekend, like a pizza, or I could go to an all-you-can-eat barbecue place, which was one of my favorites. Basically, I could go a little bit more crazy, and if I craved one, I would drink a milkshake, although later on, I just cut sugar out of my diet completely, unless it was fruit. So yeah, it's really useful to help you with pillar number 1. And then the third thing, or the third summary, is if you're going to start doing it, don't do what I did. Don't eat the big breakfast and shoot yourself in the foot. Rather just go out for OMAD, start with once a day or once a week, and then work your way up from there. And remember, guys, this is not a sprint. This is not a race. This is a marathon. Don't do a crash diet. Do a lifestyle change. Up next, I'm just going to show you quickly what kind of meals I prepared. Okay, I like to use a wide variety of vegetables at one go to make sure I get all the micro and macronutrients I need. It's usually a good idea to pick different colored vegetables. In this case, I'm using tomato, onion, an avocado, and spinach. I'm also going to be using chicken thighs as a protein base now, but you can use anything else. Then I'm going to be using brown Italian pasta, which is a complex carb. For spicing, I always use cayenne pepper to open up the heart and make sure your blood flows well. And then we're going to use black pepper and turmeric together. Now, guys, take a look at what happens when you use these 2 spices, especially as an anti-inflammatory agent, when you use them together. Then I'm also going to be using Italian olive oil, which in my opinion is the best and healthiest option for cooking. Now, I actually like to add those 3 spices at the beginning and put them in the pan because I don't like spicy food very much. And to be honest, we're not after the flavor here, we're after the effect that it has on your body. Again, guys, take a look at turmeric and black pepper together to see what it does. You will be amazed. It is a wonder spice. first thing you're going to do is we're going to roast our protein base. And again, guys, you can use beef or lamb or whatever, but specifically we want to cook it until all the fat comes out. And at this point, if you still think that fat is a bad thing and fat is the enemy, then you are not paying attention. Carbs are the enemy, my friend. All right, when it's nice and ready, you'll see in a minute, we're just going to take it out, and we want all that fat that's at the bottom. We're going to use that to roast our vegetables. All right, as you can see, it's nice and fatty down at the bottom. Now you just add the vegetables and make sure they cook in that fat. Take it in, and it's wonderful for the flavor. Obviously, I'm not adding the spinach yet. That'll come at the end. Adding the chicken back in. Make sure it gets cooked thoroughly, and to make sure that the vegetables absolutely absorb all the fat, all the fatty goodness, all the flavor. Okay, guys, now I'm not that strict about it anymore, but at the start, I would weigh every single thing I ate just to make sure I got the calories correctly. In this case, we're going to use the pasta and we're going to weigh it up. And I have to add that I usually go on the metric of about 50 grams per person. And in this case, I am cooking for 4 people, which is why the portions are so big. There's no way I would eat all that chicken all by myself. So in this case, yeah, if you can see, this pasta is actually really good nutritionally speaking. It is not a simple carb, it's a complex carb, and it works out to about 170 calories per person. And yeah, there's the final product. I mix all the vegetables together and leave the chicken. And yeah, this is quite delicious. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and lift. See you next time.